So, Glass Onion. I watched it and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good sequel to Knives Out. It's been a while since I've seen the first movie though, so I can't really adequately compare their quality reliably. But I feel confident saying that if you enjoyed Knives Out, Glass Onion should be right up your alley. But after saying that, I also can't help but lobby one major criticism at the movie. And that's the fact that Glass Onion fell for the same trap that the detective, Benoit Blanc, did when he was solving the mystery in the first place. But to really express what I'm talking about, let's take a step back and go over the main mystery. Like Knives Out, Benoit Blanc found himself invited to a gathering of people dependent on one rich person. In this case, a billionaire CEO named Miles Bron, whom they relied on the patronage of. But it turns out that he wasn't invited by the billionaire, leaving him suspicious. Now, it was at this point in the movie that I was thinking, what is it with the murderers in these movies and inviting the world's greatest detective to solve these cases? However, that's all to build up the twist of the movie. Blanc actually invited himself to the party in order to solve a murder that had already happened, with one of the guests actually being the twin sister of the person who was murdered. It's a whole thing. In the end, Benoit comes to the realization that he was overcomplicating his thought process, going over everyone's motivations and what they stood to lose and trying to create an elaborate murder scheme without considering the most obvious suspect, the rich dumbass who would lose everything if the dead woman had lived to reveal the evidence of his lies. Frankly, the theme is kinda spelled out in the name, Glass Onion, which is a reference to a Beatles song that's apparently about overanalyzing something for meaning that isn't there. The film is about a simple mystery that's overcomplicated by the belief that there was a complicated and intelligent plan surrounding these famous people with a lot to lose, when really, it's not. So how did the movie fail to learn its own lesson? The biggest problem, the ending. Despite the concept of the story being very spelled out in its execution, it fumbles the bag at the very end by overcomplicating the ending when Miles burns the piece of paper that proves he lied and stole the company from under his friend. In retaliation, Helen, the dead girl's sister, wrecks a bunch of stuff, prompting his friends who were absolutely tired of his shit to do the same, before she sets fire to his living room, blows up the mansion, sets the Mona Lisa on fire, and sits on the beach watching the approaching police pose like the goddamn painting. Also, his friends, after they all miraculously survived what I just described, have decided to help turn him in, I guess willing to go to jail for perjury now that the glass house is down. Speaking as an audience member who actually enjoyed most of the movie for all its flaws, I gotta say, the idea of people overanalyzing something being the point kind of falls flat when your movie ends with the main character sitting in the same pose as the famous painting she just destroyed. At this point, you may as well add subtitles saying, "Analyze this." But I won't. This video isn't about analyzing whatever symbolism is behind the ending. Many people, I'm sure, have already done that. I'm not looking to see what it might be saying about art, fame, richness, vapidity, the environment, disruption, or even Elon Musk. This video is about dissecting the ending as it happened and why it doesn't work. And I'm sure at least one person is going to accuse me of being a Rian Johnson hater, so I just want to point out that I made a video 3 years ago about why I thought the first Knives Out movie was really good because of how it was written. Don't watch it, I made it 3 years ago. The quality makes me cringe out of my skin. Okay, my first point is actually a relatively minor one. The glass onion explodes and everyone walked out of it relatively unscathed. Honestly, I don't even believe Blanc, who was outside, would have been uninjured from the shower of flaming hot glass. Look at the room they were standing in. The protagonist blew up the goddamn building everyone was in and they were fine, even as debris and a large car fell from the sky. Look, I went into this movie believing this dumbass had the Mona Lisa in his living room. I was clearly ready to believe anything, but I don't believe that. Yes, this is the minor point. And then, in what I've been told was a triumphant moment, she opens the failsafe protecting the Mona Lisa and lets it burn to make sure Bron gets in trouble. On top of that, the near-death experience evidently makes everyone willing to lie and put Bron in jail for the murder, ignoring the admittance of perjury that would require. Now, my immediate thought when I saw this scene was, why are they setting up the main character for what is probably going to be a very long jail sentence and eternal infamy for the destruction of the most famous painting on the planet? It was only after she dropped the bombshell of the painting being destroyed by his unstable fuel source that I realized that the movie didn't seem to realize that that's what it did. Now, I need to clarify that this isn't me siding with Bron. This is me pointing out what would definitely happen once the movie is over. First, Bron is going to have Blanc and Helen arrested for trespassing. Maybe not Blanc since he actually got the okay to remain on the island, but definitely Helen. Then the police and firemen are going to comb over the crime scene and discover that the fire was started in the living room, spread through the ventilation, and blew up the building. Everyone would then be abducted by the CIA to be tested to figure out the secrets of their immortality. Ignoring that, Miles would absolutely get in trouble for the very hard to hide reveal of the effects of Claire having blown up his mansion and burned the Mona Lisa, also installing the failsafe in the first place. Well, assuming that was the Mona Lisa, apparently the way it burned might mean it's a fake because France would never actually let the painting out of the Louvre. Frankly, it being a fake is the best solution for Helen, even if it makes sure Miles is in less trouble than he otherwise would be. If it's not a fake, while Miles may go down in infamy for his fuel source powering the fire, Helen is absolutely going down for starting the fire and opening the failsafe, which would have her fingerprints at the very top as the last one that pressed them. To use an analogy, Miles would be the person who built a poorly conceived car that everyone knew was going to crash in a fiery explosion, and Helen would be the person who decided to get in that car and drive it into a goddamn museum. And let's not forget that Miles is still a billionaire with an army of lawyers who will absolutely destroy Helen's reputation and easily convince everyone that the angry intruder accusing him of murdering her sister blew up his house and burnt everything he owned. And not just because it's true. And that's also under the assumption that the disruptors don't also decide to testify to Helen's actions to make sure she joins them all in prison after she almost nearly blew them up. And you know the thing that really makes me upset? All of this was unnecessary. Firstly, because this could have remained a simple mystery and just ended with the characters having enough evidence to have Miles arrested. Or, if you don't want that, just remember that Miles already implicated himself for a crime that would make it very likely he did kill Helen's sister when he tried to kill Helen. Yeah, remember that? Miles would have gunshot residue on himself as well as his fingerprints on the gun when the police arrived, and then he would have to explain exactly why he decided to shoot her. Also, if he murdered Dave Bautista's character by putting pineapple in his drink, then that raises the question of why he put pineapple in his drink in the first place. And just minutes after his friend got an alert on his phone about the death of his former partner. Miles is evidently an idiot who does things that go way above his intelligence level. The movie insists on this, but he's evidently smart enough to get away with murder. There should still be reasonable evidence that he killed Andy if they looked for it, but they don't really even try. Maybe evidence that places him around Andy's house when he died, which he went to in his extremely recognizable personal car. There could also be physical evidence of his presence in a house that he didn't really think of. Let's not forget that there hasn't actually been an investigation into Andy's death because at first it was thought it was a suicide, and then Benoit decided to suppress all information about it in the first place. But no one even thinks about this because the envelope gets burned, so they all decide, yeah, that's it, we've lost. If Bron is so dumb, why are his crimes so apparently airtight, even the ones with glaring holes and that he comes up with on the fly?
Miles Bron is an idiot.
Maybe he's just a genius at being a criminal. Going for the overblown but very symbolic destruction of a giant ball of glass and burning of the Mona Lisa was quite the spectacle that had me going, oh shit, for a second. But it's an overly convoluted ending the main characters resort to because they think they've been outsmarted and haven't thought to look for possible mistakes the villain made in a movie where overthinking things and not looking for simpler solutions because of your overestimation of the villain is the reason he almost gets away with his plans. The movie made the exact same mistake it once again by going for this symbolic and intelligent ending and having its characters completely forget that they spent the whole day overlooking the obvious, which winds up with them committing arson, destruction of public property, probably a lot of environmental pollution with all that burning glass going into the ocean, endangerment of people, and whatever crime you can get for blowing up the most famous painting in the world. But those are just my thoughts on the movie. What did you guys think of it? Tell me in the comments down below, and while you're down there, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and check out my channel because I have way more stuff than this on it. Thank you, and good day.